Good morning, everyone. Debbie here. I am going to be sharing with you this fun little painting, and why I don't have the original sitting here, I'm not sure. Let me see, hold on. Nope. We're going to be painting this little pumpkin here today, which I've already painted one and don't know why I can't find it. Anyway, really fun. I'm also going to be adding in one of you, this is why I love you guys. One of you recommended, based on hearing the colors I like, this Daniel Smith paint called Red Fuchsite Genuine. So I'm going to try that out today. I'm kind of excited about that. She saw the colors that I was using and thought I might like that color. I want to explain a little bit too what I've got here. So you may already know this, but with all of my, or most of my tutorials, I create this little worksheet. I call it a companion kit to the tutorials. They're only $5. You download them, and I do make about $3 off of them. Of course, Etsy takes $2, but what I do is you're going to get a digital download typically of anywhere from 3 to 5 sheets. I put the colors that I used. I give you an image of the painted piece so you can look at it. With all of them comes this little warm-up sheet to practice. You've got your thin strokes, your medium, your thick. So this is just something to go through, and actually on the one you get, it's labeled, and then your values. So these are just something you can always use every day. You get a drawing of the painting that goes with the tutorial. And, oh, you know what? 1 second here. Nope. I don't know what happened to the original I painted, but anyway, so these are all the things that you will get, and they're just kind of fun. Something I wish I would have had from my teachers, because I always walked up to the class and wanted to see exactly what they painted, what it looked like, and see if I could figure out how they made the certain brush strokes. So hopefully these are helpful for you. Again, they're only $5 on Etsy. I do get about 3. Okay, for supplies, today I'm going to be using, and look at this fun little palette. I know you guys always enjoy my palettes. Sorry for that bump there. This also is made by Mist Ceramics, and she does this custom for me. We both work on the size, how many palettes I want. She knows I love flowers, so she always creates these beautiful little handmade flowers. And this is the first time she actually included this little brush rest, which I think is really cool. They're mini palettes. I had about 6 of these made for when I have a workshop here. Each of my students can use one of these. So you guys always ask me about those. I'll link in the description. You know, I don't get anything, but you can order from her. She doesn't do those all the time, by the way. And I am using my 140-pound cold pressed paper. I'm going to be playing with both an 8-round Princeton Velvet Touch. You know, I love those. And my 6-round. This is actually a Heritage. Give me 1 second here. Not sure. I have a Princeton 6 long I've been using and I absolutely love, but I just rearranged all of my brushes and I don't know where I put that one. So any smaller one you can use for some detail if you want to do, you know, put some veins or lines in our little leaves. The beginner's choice, you can use this other beginner set that, you know, I absolutely love. Totally surprised by how well they've lasted now for 6 months. You get a whole set of these, they're Dagatos, round brush set for like, I want to say $12. And I'm really surprised at how good they are actually. So for the beginners, if you don't want to make the big investment in Princeton brushes, these are a great little set. You guys seem to really be enjoying them. And lastly, my MeiLang palette. I use these palettes for my everyday practice. For the beginner, they've got lots of color mixes already done for you. For the lazy mixer painter like me, it's already done for you. I don't have to think about mixing colors. And this is a good price point as well. Okay, let's get started. What I first like to do is, oh, and the other thing I have here, which I've been loving, is this Meeden dual two-well palette or two-well water dish. So the one side I use to wash my brush, the other side to rinse, and then I've got it on my little towel here that I just wipe off. Real important to be washing your brushes for watercolor beginners. If you're not a beginner, you can just, speed on through this part and go right to the painting, but I think it's important to be mentioning these things for my beginners because these are some of the things that could really cause some frustration for you, and then you're going to quit watercolors. All right, so what I like to do before I start a painting is I'm just wetting my brush, tapping it off on the side, and let's create a little color palette here. I'm going to use, let's play with my little palette here. One of the things I do like about her palettes too, I love the heavy duty Meeden palettes. You've seen me share, they're awesome. But this one, when I'm doing these videos, I can hold it, I can manipulate it. And you guys, look at how adorable it is. I mean, the detail she goes into is just incredible. So I'm going to be using this cad orange. Let's just do a little, what I typically do is this little swatch sheet here. And just playing with the values, I'm gonna rinse my brush off a bit and pull it out till I get lighter and lighter because I wanna see how light I can get this. And in my painting, I wanna include all these values. So I want to include the darkest value all the way to my lightest value because that creates that interest. So wash and rinse my brush, and let's go to the second color. We will use probably a mix of yellow ochre in your Winsor Newtons, that's yellow ochre, and then let's just mix in a tiny bit of cad yellow. Now notice I'm getting the paint, I'm loading my brush with the side of my brush. I'm making sure not to go all the way up to the ferrule because paint will get stuck in there and ruin your brush really quickly. That's the demise of your beautiful brushes. And I'm also not going into the paint with the tip of my brush. I go in with the side. I've had my brushes forever, you guys. And that definitely helps, is really protecting the integrity of that tip. So I load my brush on in the belly. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's put that yellow ochre down here and then adding some water, not too much water. Just pulling that out till we get to that light value. So I want to use all these values as much as possible. That's what creates your interest and depth in your paintings. And then let's just go into this cad yellow. We start with that deepest value, so probably 90% pigment, 10% water. Rinse my brush, scrape it a bit, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now go in, pull it out, and you get those values. Any of these can be mixed together as well, by the way. And let's get a little bit of an earthy brown, so you can use your burnt umber, your burnt sienna, whatever brown kind of calls to you. Do the same thing. And a lot of this, you're probably going to mix with some of these colors anyway. So rinse my brush, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull it out, get that lightest value. And let's do our green. I typically will mix sap green in the Winsor Newton colors and my, it's called tree green in MeiLang, but sap green and my olive green in Winsor Newton. You know, you'll find the green that you really like using and just make that your kind of your color, your brand. Rinse my brush, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm gonna pull that out and look at that. We've got all these different values here. So I think for the most part, that will be the colors that I use. And I think that's it. Let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna be using a lot of wet and wet. Oh, you know, there is one more color. What am I thinking? I wanted to try this color that one of you recommended, Red Fuchsite Genuine. Never used it before. It's a Daniel Smith. I'm not sure, it might be a little, matter of fact, I think it will be. I don't think it's, because it has a little bit of pink in it. So it's a little bit cooler. These are all pretty warm colors, meaning they have undertones of the warm side of the color wheel. Don't have my color wheel here, but if you divide it in half, you can always tell if a color or pigment is warm or cold because of the undertones. And I hold it up to, I wish I had my color wheel here. 1 second. I just, oh, it's in here. 1 second, guys. Here it is. So you can divide your color wheel in half and it will give you your cool and your warm side. So the way I remember that is the warms are going to be more of the sun colors. The cools are going to be more of ocean colors, okay? So that's just a good way I kind of remember it. And if you're not sure, so if we hold this color, if you can see this color, up to the color wheel, let me show you this, because this really helped me back in college. I hope you can see that color. Maybe I should put it on the paper here. Let's do this. I think this is really helpful. Again, if this doesn't interest you or you're not a beginner, you can just fast forward. So here is this color. Now, for me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I hold that up to my color wheel, it's going to lean more, hard to show this, towards these cooler undertones. For me, that's what I'm seeing. It does have a little bit of warmth and it could almost go with these, but I'm looking for a little bit more heated, redder color. So this color actually, depending on if you put it with cool colors or warm colors, it really could kind of go either way. But for the painting, I want to stick with the really warm colors. So let me try out this, I think this is vermilion. And yeah, see, I want to stick more in that warmer color, maybe even the cad red, something like that. So those will be the colors I stick with. They're much warmer than this color here. This has got a beautiful, I'm even noticing it has a tiny bit of sparkle in it, which I didn't expect. But this color is much warmer, okay? So let's get our paints ready. I'm gonna put some of that cad orange in here. Because we're working wet and wet, you wanna make sure you have your colors ready to go. Because by the time you might get a color in your palette or mix a color, your painting could be wet and now you're not working wet and wet anymore. Get rid of that. So I try to have my colors on my palette already. I'm not rinsing this so much because I'm picking up similar colors. So we pick up some of that red, cad red in Winsor Newton. There we go. So those are ready to go for me. I can go right in. I don't have to stop and mix my colors. Let's get that green going. So I've got my olive green ready to go. Pick up some of the sap green. I'm trying to go in. I'm running low on that one. Trying not to use the tip of my brush. And there you go. And then I've got my brown, which really, you know, use whatever brown calls to you. I kind of like that darker brown, and then I will lighten the value of it, meaning I will add more water. All right, so I've got all my colors. I've even got some cad yellow ready in my palette. And I've got my yellow ochre. So look at that palette color. That is my color board. Gorgeous, right? All right. Let's start with, let's see, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be moving this way. So I want to probably start with this pumpkin here. Let's go ahead, and you'll see this in those tutorial sheets. So you can kind of look at this and, you know, follow along a little bit, and then as well the tutorial. All right, let's go into here, and I'm going to go in with the light version of that cad orange. Now, what you're going to notice is I'm using a lot of the side of my brush for these so that I can cover a large area. The other thing I want to note is I'm leaving these white spaces, okay? So keep that in mind. Get that in your head before you start. No, you're not coloring in the entire thing the same color. So there we go. Now that's kind of darker than I really intended. Watercolors does dry a little bit lighter, but each of these I want to do in some different values just because it's interesting. Now making sure I'm not touching them together because they will just spread into one big huge glob. Using the side of my brush. There we go. I can even add a little bit more water to that one. Something like that. Okay, so leaving some white space. Now I don't want to do too many because I want to work with these while they're wet. By the way, I traced this on here with carbon paper. I traced a little bit darker because I wanted you to be able to see my drawing. So I'm washing and rinsing my brush. Hopefully that is in the camera. Maybe not. Oops, darn it. Did a little drip there. So wash my brush, rinse my brush. Really good. You can always tell if there's paint left in it because if you touch your paper towel or towel, you'll see the paint on there. Okay, this is drying. So I want to go in rather quickly, and I'm going to go into the cad red, a little bit darker. And let's just touch in here and there and let it spread. Something like that. You know, just be creative here. It doesn't really matter where you put it exactly. Make sure you preserve those white spaces. So look how beautiful that's blending on its own. One of the things, again, that I love about watercolors. So let's go into these, and in these I'm going to add a tiny bit of green. We could even add a little bit of green right here as it's coming out from the core. And if you wanted to spread that a little bit, you could either blow on it. I've got a pretty nasty straw here. And you could blow on it, and hopefully my head doesn't block you here, sticking my head in here. Can't blow that way because I can't get my head over there, but you can use that too. You can pick up your paper and tilt it, or you can just leave it. All right, let's do this right-hand side here. And again, I'm going to make that side a little bit darker values. So I'm starting with this deep orange, cad orange actually. And this is where this is the 6 round Heritage Princeton. But if I had my long round, that's what I would be using because it really gets this beautiful fine point. Here I completely went through my brushes. They look so beautiful. I've got them all divided out. Oh, is that it? No. And can't find my 6 long round. So there you go. I do better when my art desk isn't completely organized, right? It's an organized chaos. Okay, so making that side, I might even add a little bit of the brown. That might be fun. Yeah, look at that. That brown, I mixed the brown and the orange together because I don't want the exact same color on every single segment of the pumpkin, right? We want to have some fun and interest because I don't think I've ever eaten a piece of fruit that every piece was the exact same color. And then I'm going to go in with that green and tap in right here. I kind of liked that. There we go. Yeah, I liked how that spread. Okay, I think this is really turning out beautiful. Let's do this here. So rinsing my brush, picking up some of that orange paint. Spreading out. To get a wider, broader stroke, you just want to put more pressure. The more on the tip, the more your brush is upright, you're going to get a thinner line because you're using the tip of your brush. Okay, look at that, how pretty. That kind of bloomed into that. Let me grab a little bit of that green. Now probably if I could turn this, I would get in there a little bit more and help that spread, but I don't want to stick my head in front of you. Okay, wash my brush. I'm just cleaning off that. Wash my brush really good. Rinse my brush. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And let's go into this other pumpkin. So I'm going to use a little bit different colors in this one just so they look, they'll be similar, but I want to do them a little bit different. So I might go into maybe some of this cad and yellow ochre using the side of my brush, leaving white space. Let's see, let me put this down. Lighter value in the one next to it, because we don't want them all to be the exact same color. You could even lift a little bit of that out. Okay, there we go. Wash, rinse my brush. Go in with a little bit of orange. So I'm making this pumpkin. Now I'm not going right up to this one because it's wet. But I'm making sure, remember these values. You want to use some of the dark oranges, reds, cad reds, and you want to make sure you're including these lighter values. That's why I like doing these sheets, because you can kind of check. Do I have all these different values? Oh, I do. Awesome. So that creates a lot of value. I'm going to dip into that green. Let the paint spread it out, or you can use your straw. And then let's go into this right here. And there we go. Wash, rinse my brush. Maybe just go up to that. So I'm working pretty wet here. I don't typically work with puddles, but I am doing that a little bit here. If you don't feel comfortable with that, you got to get used to working with those puddles because they can kind of get out of control if you don't watch it. So there we go. I'm going to go in here with a little bit of that yellow, that golden yellow ochre, and there we go. Let's go back here, wash, rinse my brush, pick up a tiny bit. Now that's a pretty vibrant value. but I'm trying to make this one a little bit darker and more vibrant because it's in front of this one. Go in here. Look at that one, really has a dark value. That's okay. But look at that beautiful white space I'm leaving. I'm even enjoying some of these little blooms because anytime I paint something organic, I think blooms and bleeding are really quite fine. It kind of lends to that organic feel. Now we'll go in there with maybe some of that brown. And we don't want that brown to be just there, so I'll spread it around while everything's wet. And see how important it is to have your paints ready, because we are playing in here with wet and wet, and I don't want to stop, have to mix my color, come back, and then my painting's dry. Wash and rinse my brush. Go into this. Paint around this little stem here, being very aware of leaving those white spaces. Go in here. There we go. So these pumpkins you can really have fun with. Go in with either green or brown. Right in here, let it spread. And I think I'm going to leave those just how they are. I'm kind of liking that white on there. Now let's play with some of the leaves because we want this to dry a bit. We'll go into this one. So I'm going to use a wet brush, and let's see, we'll go in with green and a very light value. So if you're looking at these values, we want to, you can always go darker. So you want to maybe focus on going light first. So I'm just going to color in here. I want a little bit more water to lighten up. And again, I'm using the side of my brush, and I'm leaving white spaces. See the white spaces, and look how beautiful. It's not all just one flat color. Now I'll go in there with a little bit of gold or orange and just tap in and let that spread while it's wet. Maybe some brown at the base or on the edges, because you know how sometimes, now that dried already, so that's not spreading. So I'll wet my brush and just push and pull that out, which you see me do in a lot of my paintings. I just tap in, and if it's wet, it's going to spread. But you know, on leaves, that's one thing about fall leaves. They're so pretty. They have every color in them, from red to oranges and golds. Like nature, she's amazing. So there's that leaf. Let's do another one. Wash and rinse my brush. Pick up some of that green. As well, it's fun to include the colors of your pumpkins in your leaves. I think it just really unifies the whole painting. So wash and rinse that. Add in again some of those oranges. Wash, rinse. Maybe mix some of that green with the brown. Go in at the base here. And I always feel like leaves, I find they'll have a little bit of like burnt edges. And that's where I like creating some of that. Let's do this leaf right here. Now this is mostly dry, so I should be safe coming up quite close. I just touched that. There we go. And go in there with quite a light value, leaving a little bit of white space here and there for that wonderful interest. And let's go in with a tiny bit of orange here and there. There we go. Maybe a tiny bit of green right at the bottom where it might be shadowed. Now this would be a good spot. You could blow. There we go. I might even add a little darker in there. Like that. And there you go. Okay, let's do our last leaf over here. And I think I'll make that one a little bit more brown in there, or goldish color. So I'll pick up some of that yellow ochre and just mix it in with a little bit of brown. Look at that pretty color. Using the tip of my brush and then flattening it out. Like that. Now that's an awful lot of water I have in there, but this leaf's pretty big, so I'm okay with that. I'm gonna spread it all around. Leaving that fun white space. There we go. This is where the tip of your brush is important and why we want to protect that tip of our brush. Now I don't want it to be hanging out there with just that one color. We want to make it cohesive. So let's pick up some of that green. And actually this is the stem, and I'll just touch in there. Maybe a little bit of shadow right here. Okay. Just touch in here and there. And again, I'm getting these wonderful, beautiful little blooms, which I love whenever I'm painting organically, because nature has blooms. Now I might go in with a tiny bit of orange. Get playful here, just let the watercolors kind of do their thing. There you go. Okay, I like that. Now we've got, I drew these lines so we could make some little sprigs of leaves. So let me grab a tiny bit more of my green. This is the olive green. There we go. I think I want some brown in there too. And let's create, just using lightest pressure, use the tip of my brush. I've got my brush about 2 o'clock. Light pressure. And this is where it's so important to practice those brush strokes. Where did I put those? Here they are. Because this teaches that muscle memory for these thin little lines, and your hand gets used to how much pressure do I need to make that. Now while that's wet, hopefully, I'm going to go in with some gold and some yellow maybe, and create these fun little leaves. And touching into the branch, I'm hoping it will bleed a little bit. Picking up some of the green and just point press, something like that, okay? So there we've got our eye moving around. Now let's do this one. I'm gonna go in and pick up some of that green brown, because I like how that blends with the leaves. I could even add a little bit. Look at that. Yeah, I like that. Isn't that pretty? And let's go in here, light pressure. And now go in before that dries. Pick up our yellow ochre and our yellow, and start creating these fun little branches. What I meant is, I think I stuck my hand in that. These fun little leaves before this dries. If it dries, I can go in with little bit more brown. There we go. Picking up some more green, just dabbing it in there. Maybe I'll add a little bit of these leaves poking out here and there. Okay, and then we've got these little curlicues, which are so fun with pumpkins. And practice that. Practice these little squiggles so that you get used to that light pressure. Okay, there's another one, light, light, light pressure. Now, if you don't have enough water in your brush, you're not gonna get that. It's gonna dry out. And I just wanna add a little bit more there. There we go. So look how pretty that is. And then, dang, I sure wish I could find that little brush. I'm gonna try and just do a little bit of veining with this. So I'll pick up some of that brown green and we'll just create a little bit of veins here and there. Not really a detail person, but I think it's kind of pretty here. I actually would have probably preferred to do that when it was wet like this. I think that's really pretty because I'm not one for hard lines. Maybe a little bit on that one. That 6 would be perfect for this. Some of you may really like these hard lines. I've never been a real hard line person. So it's just kind of what you like, do what you like. Okay, now we don't want to forget that stem in the middle. So let's get a pretty green. I think, there we go. A little bit more water. And I want to leave a little bit of white space in that, this stem. So that you can see it's a stem. Now the stem stands out more in this one because there's more orange. This had more green, so it could kind of get lost. I think what I might do is pick up some of that brown and go in there. I really want that stem to kind of stand out from the pumpkin, like that. Wash and rinse my brush. And with just a barely damp brush, I'm going to do that push and pull, that feathering, just to feather out that brown a little bit. Oop. Just like that. And there you go. Might go in that a little bit more. You could even add in some of these little lines. I wouldn't specifically do the entire line. Maybe just some little touches like that. Just for some fun little interest. So for that color, I actually really like, you could use vermilion or you could use cad red, and I just mixed it with a little bit of that green brown mixture, hardly any. And then just going in, and you don't want a solid line. That's too perfect. Okay. There we go. So I'm just kind of touching in there. All right, I think I'm gonna leave it at that. I will link all of my supplies for you. I will also, another cool thing, maybe I mentioned this already. Her new palette she sent me, she made these little brush rests, which I really like. And this is such a perfect little palette for my students when they come here. Thank you so much, Miss Ceramics. Okay. By the way, I'm not affiliated with her, but I'll share her link because I just think she's so special, and she's a small creator like me, and I think it's important to support other small creators. So $5, go in, grab this little tutorial kit. You get all these pieces, $5, you download them. You can come back to this, do your warm-ups and practice, and then you have the original. You can kind of see exactly where I put different colors, and you, I think, will enjoy those. All right, everybody, thanks so much for being here. I will see you soon. For those of you on my, I do 1 or 2 classes a month private via Zoom. I have one coming up next Tuesday. Can't wait to see you guys, have a few new faces, and I will see you all soon. Thanks so much.